Well, there's a new kid at the I Want Inco table. The latest suitor is a Brazilian buccaneer with a boatload of cash. Companhia Vale de Rio Doce has launched an aggressive $20 billion bid for Inco. Tecumseh's stock and cash offer now looks inferior, at least on paper. Meanwhile, U.S. copper producer Phelps Dodge is starting to resemble George Foreman deep into round 8 of the Rumble in the Jungle, an opponent that's been pummeled, beaten, and bashed just a few too many times. Niall McGee reports.
Companhia Vale de Rio Doce is big, brash, and now the front runner in the battle to nab Inco. The Brazilian iron ore giant has plunked down a highly aggressive $86 a share all-cash bid. The offer values Inco at almost $20 billion.
The bid is very attractive, all-cash offer compared to the cash and share offers of Teck and Phelps Dodge. So I think shareholders are going to be looking very seriously at this.
The cash component of Tecumseh's offer for Inco is $40, and Phelps's is just over $20. CVRD can afford its fatter cash offer because it has lots of it. Almost insatiable Chinese demand for iron ore helped the company pump out almost $15 billion in revenue last year.
We are forming the largest nickel company in the world in terms of reserves, in terms of asset quality, and in terms of production.
But don't count Tecumseh out just yet. Many are expecting the company to sweeten its bid for Inco at least one more time. However, some Teck shareholders are starting to question that ploy.
All this wheeling and dealing is going on a whole lot closer to the top of the metal market than the bottom, which makes it a dangerous time to be doing deals.
If Teck does come back, expect it to happen sooner rather than later. Its current offer for Inco expires on August 16th. Niall McGee, Report on Business Television, Toronto.
My name is Miles Sullivan and I'm a staff representative with the Steelworkers.
Miles, tell me a little bit about Vale buying Inco 3 years ago and how that possibly happened.
That's a long story. There was a bidding war. Vale ended up coming out on top. They paid a lot more than what they should have paid for it because the price of nickel was high and the value of the company was overinflated. They paid $19 billion. The federal government said that it would be a net benefit to Canada, to Canadians, to the community, to the people that work there. They said they did a detailed study. We had concerns, and those concerns are unfortunately a reality today.
So the Conservative government had just come into power. Is that right when this happened?
Yeah, the Conservative government had come into power not long before. And we'd actually lobbied the government in hopes of them reversing their decision. We initially lobbied the government requesting, in our position was that Inco take over Falconbridge because there was a bid at that time for Inco to take over Falconbridge. And then they teamed up with Phelps Dodge last minute to try and take over Falconbridge, but they lost that bidding war to Xstrata. The other mining plants in Sudbury are owned by Xstrata, another foreign investor, and right after Inco lost that, they became the target for takeover because they were small enough. And the government has done nothing whatsoever to help us. Everything they've done has allowed us to live with the aftermath of the takeover of Vale.
You can roughly locate any community in the world somewhere along a scale running all the way from democracy to despotism. One to the democracy end, another somewhere in the middle, and a third in communities which depend almost entirely on a single industry, such as a factory or mine. Maintaining economic balance is a challenging problem. If this condition exists over the nation as a whole, so that the control of jobs and business opportunities is in a few hands, despotism stands a good chance.
As long as commodity prices remain where they are, it seems the Canadian resource sector is content to sell out to the highest bidder. This also reignites a debate that we saw last summer with the sale of Inco and Falconbridge, namely, should Canadians be celebrating or lamenting the sale of these companies? Another day, another pair of Canadian resource companies on the way out. Norilsk, a company whose workers were originally forced to work in Russian gulags, upped Xstrata's bid for nickel company Leonore Mining. And SSAB of Sweden has thrown down a $7.7 billion bid for steelmaker IPSCO. Conspicuously absent from both deals, a Canadian bidder, of course.
Canada was preeminent in the steel industry, and we're going to lose that preeminence. It's going to be foreign-owned.
The deals have reignited a debate that's been raging since Falconbridge and Inco went to foreign buyers last year. Should Canadians be celebrating or cursing these deals? But this mad dash wholesale selling of, in some cases, century-old companies is by no means contained to Canada.
It's going on all around the world, so Canada's not unique. I'd say Canada's at a disproportionate amount of takeovers.
Economic nationalists may rue these takeovers, but shareholders are unlikely to agree. These deals are almost always cut at a premium. Good news if you own the stock, and even better news for the TSX. The trend of Canadian companies being devoured by foreigners is unlikely to let up. And with Finance Minister Jim Flaherty recently eliminating the deductibility of interest incurred by Canadians on foreign acquisitions, our own companies are even less likely now to make foreign acquisitions of their own.
Johnny MacDonald in 1891 gave his life literally in that his last campaign of his life at 76, when he, in the last speech that he gave in his life, warned Canadians against what he called the veiled treason that would take from them their country, and he was talking about the liberal idea and concept of free trade.
The text of the free trade agreement has never been readily available to the public. At the time of its release, calls to MPs requesting it were met with a variety of responses. Due to pressure from the public, various documents were issued extolling the agreement, but containing little of the text. Even if one does obtain a copy of the agreement, it is written in a language difficult for a person without specialized training to understand. Shortly after its release, debate about the contents of the agreement was cut off by the then government majority in the House, and cabinet ministers were directed not to debate the agreement in public. Those who raised questions about the agreement were attacked. Members of two citizens groups, the Council of Canadians and Citizens Concerned About Free Trade, were labeled as wimps, weak-willed and narrow of vision, anti-NATO Reds, bomb throwers, and worse.
This is unique in that they're taking a resource from Canada. So if you were taking a resource from Canada and the money's permanently leaving Canada, wouldn't the Canadian government be upset about that?
That's an excellent question. We think they should be very upset about that, but they aren't. And in fact, it was this conservative Canadian government, excuse me, that did the deal with Vale to sign a contract to sell them our natural resources.
This is kind of a pattern with this government in that they've not held U.S. Steel accountable in Hamilton for closing that plant.
That's correct. They've made a lot of noise, but I think they've done nothing.
So if that's the case, I think that you could make a pretty good argument that you're being sold out by your government. How does that feel after being the third-generation worker here?
Yeah, that really does hurt. I mean, our whole world has changed here now. I mean, everything has been turned upside down. Globalization has come to Canada and come to Sudbury, and it's slipped in very quietly, but is knocking the hell out of us. Globalization now has affected our workforce. I mean, we were almost lulled into a false sense of security with free trade. All of this was happening in other countries, the downsizing and the negative effects. Now it's come to us, and it almost came in the back door and is now kicking the hell out of us. And our government really is doing nothing to stop it.
Does it frustrate you that the national media here in Canada and the United States, and Leo Gerardo always calls them the sushi circuit, because they all go to the same cocktail parties, and they probably never even met a miner. Peter Mansbridge seems like a nice guy, but he's probably not spent a lot of time with miners lately. Well, that they don't understand the consequences of free trade. They bring their pundit panels on, and some of these people even profit from some of these deals. They don't have any understanding of this. Does that frustrate you?
Well, yeah, it does. It frustrates us. But, I mean, we all know that the media is not there for the working people. The media is there for its own purposes. The media does not support working people.